wait a minute, America's Yugoslavia. It's the same thing. We have three ethnic groups in America based on three religions: Protestant, Catholic, Jew, after three generations, no matter where you come from.
One of the things that he was constantly seemed to be really hammering you on was that you were some type of denialist, and you just absolutely didn't believe that there was any type of race at all. And that's really, I think, a mischaracterization and a misrepresentation of your position, because what it sounds to me like you're really saying is, of course, there's physiological differences between people, but what we perceive as race is what you're calling this category of the mind.
Right.
And that is really what I gleaned from that. And I think that it's really, really difficult for young men. They've been beaten over the head with racialism for about the last 40 years. And I think that they're having a really difficult time at this point separating what's a category of the mind from what are physical realities.
Right.
And I wondered if you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah. So basically, like, tell me the meaning of your nose. Well, what they're saying is your nose has meaning. If you have this kind of nose, you're going to act in a certain way. And if you have this kind of nose, you're going to act in another way. This is preposterous. And the problem here is nobody talks to these people, other than people like themselves. It's a kind of enclosed, hermetically sealed off from reality little club. It's a little bubble. And I think that's what they want, because they need some type of consolation from each other. Because it's true. They are being attacked. It's true. They're being attacked as white people. That's true.
Yep.
But I'm saying that doesn't mean that you're white. And I'm trying to say that the crucial turning point came in 1954 with the Supreme Court decision, Brown versus School Board, which made race an official category of the legal system of the United States of America. I mean, it's always been an official category. It's in the Constitution. So nothing really changed that regard. But in 54, the other event was the publication of Will Herberg's book, Protestant, Catholic, Jew, which proposed the alternative to racial division, and that's called ethnic identity. And this is sophisticated. It takes a little sophistication because America's different than, let's say, Tanzania, okay, where you can be a Luya or a Kikuyu simply because of your language. That's the state of nature, basically. You have tribes, they have their own language, and that's the group you belong to. They are racially indistinguishable from each other. There's no difference between a Hutu and a Tutsi racially, but yet they fight each other. Why is that? Is one secretly white on the inside? Is that what's going on here?
That's would you say that that's more of an ethnicity issue, where the two tribes aren't getting along? It has nothing to do with race at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
History is littered with ethnic conflict. And so originally, Frody Mitjord, the head of the Skanza Forum, scheduled this debate for Zagreb. And I really wanted to go to Zagreb. I can't think of a better place on earth to hold a debate like this, because, Jared, you're going to have to explain to me the racial differences between Croats and Serbs. Can you explain that to me? Well, you can't, because there's no racial difference whatsoever between one of the longest standing conflicts in history, the conflict in the Balkans between the Serbs and the Croats. And that conflict it's not based on language. They say the same language. The alphabet's different. It's based on religion. And I didn't understand this until I did the book on Medjugorje and Yugoslavia, where I realized, wait a minute, America's Yugoslavia. It's the same thing. We have three ethnic groups in America based on three religions: Protestant, Catholic, Jew, after three generations, no matter where you come from. Yugoslavia, same thing. Three ethnic groups based on three religions: Serb, Croat, Muslim, Orthodox, Catholic, Muslim. That's the same thing. It suddenly opened my eyes.
Do you think that the reason that so many people have been categorized as being white, which is a very obscure thing that nobody can even agree on, as you are rightly pointing out, you think that the reason for this is so that people who are in that category can be more easily attacked as a whole?
Absolutely. I brought up the example of St. Louis a year ago. This is the wave of iconoclasm that swept through the United States in the wake of the Black Lives Matter demonstrations. And a guy by the name of Umar Lee, who started off in life as a white boy and then became black when he went to high school because hanging around with all these black guys, and then he became a Muslim. So he's kind of like a man with an ongoing identity crisis here. And as a Muslim, he announces that he wants to tear down the statue of St. Louis in St. Louis. Well, wait a minute. What's this got to do with slavery? St. Louis was a saint in France in the 13th century. What's that got to? Well, it turns out that he burned the Talmud, so the Jews don't like him. And it turns out, oh, wait a minute. Omar's working for the Jews. He didn't tell us that. He kept to use this Muslim as a cover for that alliance. But what was the tactic? The tactic is identity theft. So all of those people who want to preserve the statue, they're all standing there praying the rosary. And Umar says, oh, they're white supremacists. Well, wait a minute. White supremacists don't pray the rosary. They were Catholics. But Umar knew he couldn't win that battle if he fought against Catholics. So he had to call them white supremacists, because if he could make that stick, that form of identity theft stick, he would win automatically, because white supremacists have no rights whatsoever. And the statue would have come down.
I absolutely agree that that's true, and the statue would have come down. One of the challenges that I have when I'm talking to young men on this particular subject, there's massive amounts of resistance because, as you have just rightly pointed out, the categorization of white is there so that these people can be attacked as a large group easily. When I try to kind of flesh this style of argument out, one of the largest amounts of resistances that I get on it is that I'm selling out, that I'm being a stupid progressive, and I'm abandoning my right-leaning conservative principles. And I think that this is so ingrained now in people's minds, I don't know what the tactic is to try to move them off of it. Have you found any success with that?
Well, the main point I'm trying to make here is that ethnicity is a category of reality, and race is a category of the mind. Now, there's a problem here, and I think that we can address it best by talking about Frody Mitjord, younger than I am, a man who's a Norwegian who was baptized a Lutheran. Well, isn't that your identity? That seems like an identity enough to me. But what happened over this period of time is the Lutheran Church evaporated as the state religion in Scandinavia and in Norway and also in England. Protestantism just evaporated during this period of time, certainly as a physical force, certainly as the state church in Scandinavia. It evaporated. And as soon as that happened, Frody had an identity crisis because he didn't know what he was. And at this point, he adopted white as compensation for his identity crisis. Now, I'm saying that's typical of what happened here during this period of time. First of all, I think that white boys are basically Protestants who don't go to church anymore. Okay? Then you add to that fact the ethnic situation in the United States of America. So I'm biracial. I'm half German and I'm half Irish. Okay? At least I know where I came from. Now, my wife goes back, her stock goes back farther than mine. She was an Episcopalian, and it's harder to identify. The longer you stay here, so I have grandchildren who are Russian, Tatar, German, Irish, and then all of the mix that came in through my wife. Okay. Well, how can you identify as ethnically when normally ethnic means, okay, a Mexican, for example, or a recent immigrant? That's part of the problem here. It's a problem in America. And that's the problem that the triple melting pot solved, because obviously there's going to be intermarriage once you come over here. The other obvious thing is you lose your language, which is the primary ethnic marker. And so what they're saying is religion is what remains. Well, the bad news is religion doesn't remain either. Over this period of time, let's say 54 to the present, we're talking about almost 70 years now. What happened is that religion evaporated, and over the same period of time, you had social engineering, which was responsible for destroying ethnic identity, the ethnic neighborhoods, which I discuss in Slaughter of Cities, basically destroying these people's identity, creating pseudo identities like consumer items based on consumer items like Harley Davidson. If there were ever a pseudo ethnic group, it's Harley Davidson riders. And also identity politics, which became the policy of the Democratic Party, which means, okay, we'll give you an identity. You're a homosexual or you're a feminist or whatever. That destroyed any sense that these kids had of ethnic identity. That's part of the problem.
What types of moves do you suggest? Is there any fixing this, or is it just done at this point?
Yeah,
No.
There's a clear fix.
Okay.
You have to become a Catholic.
You have to become a Catholic.
It's that simple.
Won't work.